Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Nate and I do a lot of reactions comparing the United States with pretty much the rest of the world. This video is no different. However, I'm going to be reacting to a channel, Passport 2. They are an American couple living in Germany, and his video is titled 5 Unbelievable Lies that the United States has taught me about Germany. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I've thought about being in school, in high school, or growing up and thinking about if there was anything that my school system or other people or culture in general has taught me or lied to me about Germany. And I can't say that I can think of any. I do have those stereotype beliefs, or had them at back then, about Germany or about Europe in general or the rest of the world, but nothing very specific about Germany. I didn't know a whole lot about Germany. I didn't think too much about Germany. We did have a young lady in high school that was a German foreign exchange student. I never talked to her. I didn't get to know her, so I don't know anything about it. So it'd be interesting to see what he has to say and what lies he was told about Germany, and now probably finding out that they were lies because he's living in Germany, but I'm not sure. So I'll leave a link to the original video down below, and let's just get into the video.
No, Germans do that? Wait, Germans really own those?
You're saying that Germans don't actually enjoy this?
Yeah, there are some crazy things that America taught me about Germany before moving here. Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie, and along with my wife Aubrey, we are two Americans currently living in Germany with our baby and sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. Often, we have people who assume that we moved from the US to Germany 3 years ago because we hate the US or the politics drove us out of the country, when in fact, this isn't the case at all, and nothing could be farther from the truth. We've talked about this in many of our videos, but basically, I studied abroad in college in Germany and loved my time here, but wanted to dive deeper into learning about and experiencing a different culture than mine. Every country in the world has false ideas and stereotypes about other countries, and one of the most interesting and exciting things about living amongst a different country and culture is learning the truth firsthand about those places. Now, after living in Europe and specifically Germany for the past 3 years, I have really probably only started scratching the surface, but what lies have I discovered I was told about Germany that aren't true? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today in our video. Liar, liar, pants on fire. It's the German truth that I desire. Now, here is often the problem with videos like these. And in particular, of course, Germany is filled with extremely wide-ranging cultures, politics, social norms, etc. And even in the US, sometimes in the same state, you have a very wide-ranging experience with politics, cultures, religion, etc. So just know, when I say these things, it is particularly based on my personal experience growing up in Oklahoma in the US and now living in Rhineland-Pfalz. But let's start with the first
Rhineland-Pfalz. That's where my wife is from, and that's where we will be moving back to.
Lie that I was led to believe, and that is that these are just accent marks and aren't really necessary. This is something in fact pointed out to me first a few years ago on the comment on a video that we made in Germany before we moved here, in which I had spelled German words without the umlauts because simply I didn't have them on my keyboard. Well, I guess that also is a lie, because even though American keyboards don't have umlauts just out available, easily accessible, you can simply type them by holding down the letter and then selecting them. But I think this may come from a lack of understanding of foreign languages, and Americans see these letters under the umlauts and think that native speakers of the foreign language would look at it without the two dots and just know what the word is because it's the same letter. However, to give you an example, this and this are two completely different words. Technically, the German alphabet has 26 letters just like the English alphabet, but with 4 extra characters as well, I guess you could say. But yes, the umlauts are actually very important and not just simply showing an accent. Oh, and also, this is not a B.
All right, so that's kind of ignorant, I think, you know. Even if you don't know the foreign language, why would you ever assume that any characters in that are just for accent purposes and not necessary to write the word correctly? I don't understand that at all. But fun fact, my wife absolutely hates it when here in the US, a company or small shop will have a German word. There's a restaurant in Scottsdale called the Brat House. So it's German brats. It's very good. They do the brats. They do currywurst or curry ketchup. So she was pretty impressed with it. However, they spelt the name of the business, Brat, B-R-A-T, House, H-A-U-S, but they put an umlaut over the A. That's not even a word. It irritates her to no end, and I don't blame her. I'm not saying that she shouldn't be irritated. They're trying to make it more German by putting a fake umlaut in a word that doesn't have an umlaut in it to make it look more like it's German, because H-A-U-S isn't German enough. So here in the US, they try and make it cute and be fancy, and what they're really doing is making an ass out of themselves, because if a German comes up, they will call them out on it. Say, look, you misspelled house. That's not a word. So don't do it. So I don't know, that seems a little ignorant to just think that those aren't necessary in writing the language. It's like writing English and not putting an E at the end of a word if you don't say the E because it's not necessary. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right?
When you see any depiction of Germany or its culture, what do you almost always see? In the US, and honestly I think a lot of the rest of the world, Germany has an image of a beer guzzling country, and in some ways I wouldn't say this completely is a lie, but in some ways I think it is. So yes, Oktoberfest is a huge deal. Also, most of our local festivals do kick off with a mayor tapping a keg, and nearly every region in Germany will have a local beer that they stay very loyal to. However, as our friends over at My Merry Messy Life put it in a recent video, beer isn't the only drink Germans enjoy. Today I've come to the Mosel Valley. We can already see beautiful vineyards behind me in the Mosel River, and I'm going to be doing a vineyard and winery tour that I booked with the sponsor of today's video, Get Your Guide. Now, we've told you about the German Weinstraße in our region before, and also the world's largest wine festival that takes place in Bad Dürkheim every year. So to show you how important wine is in Germany, let me show you a different wine region in Germany in this video. So far on the tour, we have learned a lot of really interesting things, but one of the most interesting things that we just learned about when we talk about the importance of German wine in Germany, he was saying that the German government actually restricts how many liters of wine they're allowed to gather from individual vineyards to make sure that the quality of the wine stays really high and that the quality won't go too low because of mass production. So German wine, I guess, should have extremely high quality if you're getting some of it. As we drove here, we drove through miles and miles, or maybe I should say kilometers and kilometers of vineyards. It didn't take long to realize that wine is king in our region, and Germany is within the top 10 largest producers of wine in the world, and 60% of the wine produced in Germany comes from Rhineland-Pfalz. On this tour, we learned not only about how important wine is to Germany today, but also how deeply rooted the tradition of wine production is in Germany, and specifically the Mosel Valley, as wine has been produced here since Roman times. On this tour, we learned from seed to bottle everything that goes into wine production, and for example, why the geography of the Mosel Valley makes its Riesling wine so unique and spectacular. The tour ended with a phenomenal 3-course meal with 2 accompanying wines per course to teach how to perfectly pair wine with food, which was taught by a genuine German sommelier. With wine being such an important part of this region in Germany, one thing I highly suggest people do when visiting Germany is to do a vineyard tour like I am doing here in Ellens-Pulzersdorf. Doing a tour like this one with Get Your Guide allows you to hear from knowledgeable local experts like these at Weingut Basten. Get Your Guide offers over 60,000 curated experiences in more than 3,600 destinations worldwide, and they make it incredibly easy to search an area you're going and booking a unique experience. Like for this trip, I knew I wanted to show you guys a German winery, so I just searched for experiences in Germany, filtered the interest to drinks, and found exactly what I was looking for. We've used Get Your Guide for tours for years from Spain to Poland because it is so easy to book and you are able to cancel up to 24 hours in advance when your travel plans change. If you guys want to check out this specific tour for yourself, I can highly recommend it, and I will leave a link in the description so you can book it on Get Your Guide. But while you're there, go ahead and check out all of the thousands of great tours that they have, and you may find one in your area.
Okay, that one, that one's kind of true. When you think of Germany, or when people not from Germany think of Germany, who don't know much about Germany, are going to think that they are the beer capital of the world. And that's not true at all either. They aren't even the highest consumers of beer. Austria may be up above them, but I can understand why people would think, they think Oktoberfest. Another along with that is that Germany is Lederhosen and Dirndl wearing people drinking liters of beer. That is not the case whatsoever. That is Bavarian only, but it is such a main marketing thing that people are just going to naturally think that is Germany. Another very good wine location is Rudolph. My wife and I and my mom and grandma, when they were visiting us over there, took a trip to Rudolph. We took a little boat tour down the river, and they had a lot of wine tasting and things going on. Riesling is one of my favorite. So I can understand why he would think, or people think, that Germany's nothing but beer. But they do drink quite a few other types of drinks.
Along with the abundance of wine specifically in our part of Germany, another thing that has really surprised me is how often we see Germans drinking alcohol-free beer. When Americans think of Germans drinking all of the beer they drink, we are under the impression that Germans just simply have a culture that completely surrounds around drinking alcohol. Another point that drives this idea that Germans are obsessed with alcohol is that the drinking age is so much lower in Germany than in the US. And well, sure, alcohol does play a part of the German culture, but at the same time, I do see a lot of alcohol-free beer being drunk regularly in Germany, and this is a huge highlight of the difference in drinking culture in the US versus in Germany, I think. If you are German, I would love to hear in the comments why/if you drink alcohol-free beer, but from my perspective, I do believe that Germans drink beer purely for the enjoyment of flavor a lot more than Americans would. In the US, drinking beer is primarily about drinking the alcohol for a lot of people, and therefore drinking alcohol-free beer is pointless or sometimes even seen as non-masculine behavior. Now, drinking alcohol-free beer in Germany is supposedly a rather newish phenomenon though, and according to TheGuardian.com and an interview they did with a waiter from a German cafe in 2019, I'd estimate that every fourth beer I sell these days is non-alcoholic. That's a big change even from 2-3 years ago. This article even quoted the German Association of Brewers, DBB, as saying, now as many as 1 in 15 beers consumed in Germany contains no alcohol. It's no longer considered shameful to ask for an alcohol-free beer. On the contrary, it seems it's even becoming something of an accepted lifestyle drink, and the stigma is more or less gone.
I get that. Sometimes you just want the taste of beer, but you don't want the alcohol behind it. And there's other times where you just don't want to drink alcohol. You might be driving somewhere. The last trip we took last summer, my wife's brother-in-law and my son and I took a motorcycle trip to just another town nearby. They had this big park, like a water park, and you know, beer garden, and we drank non-alcoholic beer. We had a non-alcoholic beer because I wanted a beer, but obviously we were on motorcycles. I wasn't going to drink alcohol and then get back on a bike. So I can see that, and he's absolutely right. I think here in the United States it's seen as non-masculine or wimpy if you want non-alcoholic anything, especially if it's beer. On the other hand, I also think that the non-alcoholic beer we have here, it just doesn't taste very good. And it's not like you can get non-alcoholic beer of all the beer flavors. So it's almost like non-alcoholic beer here in the US is strictly non-alcoholic, and that's it's like that's the brand. It's not like I can go and just get non-alcoholic versions of any beer that has alcohol in it. Sometimes you can. They have a non-alcoholic version of one type of beer, but I feel like, at least what I've seen, is that it's a specific brand of non-alcoholic beer and not just a non-alcoholic version of any beer that you want. So interesting to know that that's kind of turning in the other way, that more and more people are opting for the non-alcoholic beer, which is good. I don't see any problem with that at all.
One thing highly valued for much of the US is a house with a yard. We are often led to believe that in Europe, homes are smaller, tighter put together, and therefore everybody is packed in on top of each other, and having a yard is something we are lucky to have that Europeans just don't have. I think this has a lot to do with the images we are typically shown of Europe, which look like this or this. Even more so, when Americans travel to Germany, they are usually going to places like Munich or Berlin or Nuremberg, and therefore they are really only seeing tightly packed old cities, and even then they aren't seeing the outer non-touristy parts of the city where people are more spread out, which then reinforces this idea. Now, the structure of German towns and countrysides are for sure different, and homes generally are smaller than in the US, and there are a lot of different reasons for that. And although you don't have the suburban sprawl that you have in the US, you do still find homes with yards in Germany quite often. Sure, not everybody is going to have a yard, but not everybody in Oklahoma will have a yard either. But for example, our German house has both a front yard, a backyard, and a side yard. Size is relative to whether someone would think it is large or small, but I did a Google Maps measurement of our property, and our house sits on approximately 7,800 square feet of land. So overall, the idea that Germans don't have space where they don't live on top of each other in yards isn't true, and it can feel somewhat similar to US spaces sometimes.
That is true, actually. You know, when you are shown pictures or in history books or, you know, movies or whatever, you typically are seeing the congested areas of that place. Munich, Berlin, Nuremberg, like you said, the larger touristy places. It's like going to Paris and thinking that, you know, there's no land available whatsoever, but they're failing to get outside of that city limit, go on the outskirts, or go into these small towns that might be just a very, very short drive away or walking distance away and have plenty of land. My wife's family has a backyard. They don't have any sort of front yard, but they do have quite a bit of a back garden, a flat area, then very steep steps. It is tiered, kind of in levels for planting, and then a top yard up top where my wife's brother-in-law has a little beer shack where you can go and just sit and enjoy the night. A little fire pit up there. And I know that the house that they own, that they rent out, has a nice sized backyard. So depending on where you are, I guess, my wife's from a small town situated in a valley surrounded by forest. So everybody there is going to have some sort of yard. Most of the time it's a backyard because the front is right on the street or on the sidewalk. But there are some that have a front yard as well. So I see that. We just have this mental image of the large cities because that's what's in the news all the time, or that's what's in the history books all the time. So I get where that came from.
The next thing that I was led to believe about Germany, and probably most of Europe as a whole, is that there are no guns in Europe. Boom! Wow, here I am talking about umlauts and alcohol-free beer, and then I slam down the G-U-N word. Yeah, this is a super political topic, and to many of your disgruntlement, I have no interest in talking about politics on YouTube. So all I literally want to say is the simple fact of I have been very surprised to see how many shooting clubs and hunting blinds are all over Germany. Now, I don't think I actually have ever heard anybody in the US specifically say to me, Germany has no guns. But with the political nature of this issue in the US, I do often feel like the idea spread is that the US is unique in that it allows gun ownership, period. And in particular, if you go to Europe, you won't find them. According to a DW article from this year, around 1 million people in Germany legally own a total of more than 5 million firearms. Most of them are sport shooters, hunters, or foresters. There is one side of our town that if you walk around it, it isn't entirely uncommon to hear gunshots ringing around town as shooters at the local shooting club do some target shooting. Also, nearly everybody that comes and visits us from the US are just as shocked as we were when we first moved here that in our area, it is nearly impossible to drive more than 10 minutes without coming across 1,000 hunting blinds throughout the countryside. Now, a reminder, Germany has a population of a little over 83 million people. So don't let me make you think that there are more gun owners in Germany than there actually are, but simply there are guns. And that is all I want to say about that. To see who made it this far into the video, the random question of the week is, do you peel a banana at the stem or hold the stem and peel from the bottom? Thanks so much for watching, guys. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and we will see you in our next video. Technically, the German alphabet has 26, whoops. So you know how important wine is and to many of our and to many of your disgruntlement, I think I actually have ever had any.
Okay, so some of those I could understand why one person would think one way about Germany. The one with the umlaut, though, I don't quite understand why anybody would think that you don't need those when that is the writing. That's the letter. Unless you just had no idea of the German language, no knowledge of it, no history of it, and you didn't know what it was for. But if you are writing in German, or if you're translating or doing anything, you're not just going to eliminate the umlaut because you don't think it's necessary. So that one I didn't quite get. The others I understand. And this last one about guns, obviously other countries own guns. Their citizens own guns, not to the extent that the US has guns. But my wife's hometown, they have a lot of hunting blinds around outside of the town. I've passed by them many times, never seen anybody hunting from them, but they are there. And I know that they have rod and gun clubs. I know that they have shooting clubs. I know that people go hunting. It's just not as important, not as big as here in the US. But to think that they don't own any guns, that's also a little ignorant. But who knows? Maybe you're fed one thing and you go with it because you don't know any better. So no fault of his, I'm not blaming him for being ignorant on his own. But if you grew up in a society or in an education system where they told you, you're going to believe them, right? You want to believe your teachers or whoever's telling you about a place. So you're going to believe that way until you get there and figure it out on your own that that's not entirely true. I really wish, and I've thought about this before, that I could go back in time and go to Germany for the first time again. Because I feel like some of these reactions are a little tainted because I know quite a bit about the country, about the culture. I don't know everything, obviously. I haven't even scratched the surface, but I wish I could go back and re-experience Germany for the first time again. Because every time we go back, it feels natural to me. It's not a culture shock for me to see window blinds that slat down and blocked. That's not new to me. Driving on the Autobahn is not, excuse me. Driving on the Autobahn is not new to me. Going fast is not new to me. So it's kind of a bummer that I can't experience that again for the first time. But there's always new experiences out there to be learned or to be found. And that's what I'm looking forward to the next time we go over there. Hopefully this summer in July is our next trip to Germany. So if you have anything that you want me to try that maybe I haven't done or haven't experienced, leave them in the comments of this video. I would be interested in reading about them. Also, are there any lies about Germany that you were told growing up in your state or your school or around your friends and family that maybe you found out to be false? Leave those in the comments as well. I will also leave a link to this original video down in the description. Please, if this is kind of content that you like, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell. It really does help me out. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, I'll catch you later. Bye.